Born in 1965 in Osaka, Japan, Yuji Naka is a programmer and producer synonymous with a certain blue hedgehog. Naka was chosen by Sega to create the game that ended up elevating the spiky mascot to worldwide superstardom, and he played a huge part in Sonic's glory years. Working on Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, and even the excellent Sonic Advance games, he clearly knew how to squeeze the most enjoyment possible out of a spiny woodland critter. This very specific skill brought him great success, but it hasn't all been smooth sailing. We're looking at you, Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06. Still, Mr. Naka isn't all about blue dudes with attitudes. He cut his teeth with flower-picking adventure Girl's Garden way back in 1984 and has built up quite the list of non-Sonic related programming and producing credits ever since. Whether as part of Sonic Team or with his own studio, Prope, Naka has proven that he's no one-trick pony. Or should that be one hedgehog pony? One trick hedgehog? Anyway, despite the fact that Naka will always be associated with the blue blur, we're going to take a look at just some of his other projects from over the years. A few of them are even worth checking out yourself. But let me be clear here, not all of them are. Good lord! Not all of them are. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 Yuji Naka video games that aren't Sonic. Number 10. Phantasy Star. Yuji Naka made his first major impression on the Sega brass as lead programmer on Master System RPG Phantasy Star. Released in 1987, Phantasy Star was Sega's answer to the immense popularity of the NES exclusive Dragon Quest. While the series never quite gained the notoriety of the Square Enix giant, it did win plenty of fans with its traditional turn-based gameplay and setting that merged sci-fi and fantasy, that's with an F, to great effect. With Mega Drive follow-up Phantasy Star 2, Naka was also responsible for bringing the series to the next console generation. He later produced the Dreamcast iteration Phantasy Star Online in the year 2000, which took the interesting sci-fi premise of the series and put it, well, online for players around the world to enjoy. This action MMO made use of the Dreamcast's ahead-of-its-time web capabilities and sent parties of user-created characters on various missions in search of glory and lovely, lovely loot. Phantasy Star Universe, released for the PlayStation 2, PC, and Xbox 360 in 2007, was Naka's last involvement with the series, and alas, the final servers for this MMO closed back in September 2012. Fans of misspelling the word fantasy need not despair, however, as Phantasy Star Online 2 is available on Xbox and PC now. Naka wasn't involved with that one, but the titles he did work on are still worth seeking out. Number 9. Nights into Dreams. This genre-defying Saturn classic is probably the most iconic of Yuji Naka's non-Sonic games. Released in 1996, Night into Dreams allowed players to take on the role of the enigmatic Knights, a Nightmaren who has rebelled against the evil rulers of Nightmare and sided with the peaceful denizens of Nightopia. It may not sound like it makes much sense, but that's okay, because it all plays out in the dreams of two troubled teenagers and the entire game has a suitably dreamlike atmosphere. Squeezing gorgeous visuals out of the Saturn, featuring memorable characters, enemies, and music, and offering satisfying gameplay, Nights into Dreams received critical acclaim and was one of the best-selling Saturn games worldwide. This proved that Yuji Naka could do more than just speedy hedgehogs, he could do speedy bizarre jester type things too. Wow! If you're not familiar with Nights but are feeling like the weird androgynous floating fellow and youthful protagonists seem familiar, well, we're getting to that. In the meantime, just appreciate Nights, okay? Try not to think about the other thing until you have to. Number 8. Burning Rangers. The 1998 Saturn game Burning Rangers is set in an idealistic future devoid of things like crime, war, and disease. Only one threat to human life remains: fire, and futuristic fires require futuristic firefighters to combat them. That's where the Burning Rangers step in. These guys are equipped with jump packs, cutting-edge fire suppression equipment, and skin-tight lycra outfits. Players choose their ranger and rescue civilians from blazing infernos in underwater complexes, space stations, and more. It's all very exciting. Extinguishing fires and rescuing civilians is great fun. However, despite displaying some excellent lighting effects for the time, Burning Rangers suffered from noticeable graphical glitches and pop-in. As a result, it hasn't aged as gracefully as some of the other games on this list. Despite the creakiness, however, Burning Rangers is an enjoyable and wholesome experience, which Yuji Naka created with the intention of giving players the opportunity to rescue people instead of kill them. Noble intentions, Mr. Naka, but have you met most gamers? If you'd asked them to extinguish lives rather than blazes, you might have sold a few more copies. Number 7. Choo Choo Rocket. If you ever owned a Dreamcast, the likelihood is that you owned Choo Choo Rocket as well. This Yuji Naka created puzzle action title was the first game to use the Dreamcast's online capabilities. It enabled players to indulge in multiplayer matches, competing against friends around the world to find out once and for all who can get the most mice into their spaceship. Not that that question was likely to come up, but still, now you know. As with all good puzzle games, the simple mechanics lend themselves to complex strategies. Presented with grid-based mazes, players are responsible for placing arrows and guiding as many mice as possible to the goal, all whilst avoiding rampaging orange cats. The challenge comes from the limited number of arrows available, the tricky level layouts, and occasional curveballs that alter gameplay. Choo Choo Rocket was praised for its addictiveness and simple but attractive graphical style. It even had a backstory in which the mice, or choo-choos, were going about their daily lives on a spaceport. Suddenly, a horde of cats, or the Kapu Kapus, invaded. The choo-choos, completely understandably, descended into a blind and uncontrollable panic and need your help escaping to the stars. I think you'll agree that there's nothing quite like a Japanese puzzle game to provide an epic story for the ages. Number 6. Samba de Amigo. Sega really did give Yuji Naka free rein in the Saturn and Dreamcast era. How else could he get away with making a game about a samba-loving simian? Heck, he even got them to make bespoke maraca controllers. Honestly, you come up with one worldwide $1 million franchise and they let you do whatever you want. Yuji Naka's Samba de Amigo released in 2000 for the Dreamcast, as well as in arcades a year earlier. This rhythm action game made use of the special controllers to allow players to dance along to various Latin-flavored beats, shaking the maracas high and low and striking various samba poses. Keep up with the rhythm and numerous wacky characters will join the scene, fail, and be left alone on a dark dance floor, sad, dejected, and dead inside, not unlike me at a wedding. A Wii version was released in 2008 using the Wii remotes as controllers instead of the maracas. It's not the same though, Wii remotes just don't have that samba feel. Not that Samba de Amigo has very much to do with traditional samba, but that's okay, you're just here for the cute dancing monkey. Admit it. Number 5. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. By 2003, Sega had long since been dumped out of the console market. While almost every previous effort from Sonic Team, from Sonic the Hedgehog through Samba de Amigo, reviewed well, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg is the first sign of things turning a little sour. Not that Billy Hatcher was a bad game, mind you, it just completely failed to excite the game-buying public, who refused to shell out for the product, I'm sorry. Originally exclusive to the GameCube, this 3D platformer stars Billy Hatcher, a cockerel cosplaying kid whose abilities increase if he's holding onto an egg. Naka reportedly chose eggs as the focus of the game because he wanted to give players a feeling of anticipation. Apparently you never know what's going to come out of an egg. I would argue that you do generally have a rather good idea of what's going to come out of an egg, and would posit that Mr. Naka has potentially been going to the wrong supermarkets. All jokes aside, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg was a fun platformer that provided a decent adventure to dip your soldiers into. Probably only the British viewers will get that one. Critics appreciated the graphics, gameplay, and fun multiplayer mode, even if the plot was seen as a bit simple and the overly cheery music wasn't to everyone's tastes. Not amazing then, but definitely not rotten. Number 4. Let's Tap and Let's Catch. In March of 2006, Yuji Naka announced that he was parting ways with Sega in order to form a studio called Prope. The first games announced by the fledgling company were Wii titles Let's Tap and Let's Catch, a pair of minigame collections that made use of the console's motion controls. However, far from being mere late 2000s shovelware, both games actually retained some of the innovation and quality you'd expect from Naka. In Let's Tap, players were encouraged to place the controller face down on a stable surface and then tap that surface in such a way that the controller's accelerometer picked up the vibrations. This method was used to make characters jump or move, apply paint to a canvas, or cause ripples in water. Let's Catch was a little more limited and basically provided variations of the game of catch in either multiplayer or single-player modes. Whether you were tapping or catching though, if you were a Sonic fan and you were aware that these were Yuji Naka games, you were probably a little disappointed. No matter how good experiments like this might be, they are no substitute for a full-sized, proper game. Maybe even something starring a little bird? Oh well, we'll just have to keep dreaming. Or will we? Number 3. Ivy the Kiwi? Question mark? In 2009, Yuji Naka attempted another dip into the animal mascot platformer well. This time, he came up with a kiwi. Or did he? I mean, there's a question mark at the end of the title, so I suppose nobody really knows. Originally a Windows mobile game, remember Windows phones? This bizarrely named Ivy the Kiwi? Came to Wii and DS soon afterwards. Unlike in most other mascot platformers, players don't actually directly control Ivy. The game instead shares similarities with the control scheme of Kirby Canvas Curse, with players drawing lines to direct the perpetually moving creature through tricky levels. In the Wii version, the Wiimote is used to draw, whereas the DS version makes use of the stylus and touchscreen. The game received middling review scores, with many reviewers praising the gameplay and interesting art style, but also pointing out a lack of depth and some frustrating later levels. And yes, to be clear, the question mark in the title was apparently intended to hint at the mystery surrounding Ivy's identity. Is she even a Kiwi? Would it matter? Will I lose any sleep tonight thinking about it? The answers are maybe, no, and without a doubt. Number 2. Rodea the Sky Soldier. Another attempt by Naka to forge a colourful new IP in a gaming environment dominated by darker and edgier worlds, Rodea the Sky Soldier was an airborne action-adventure game released for the Wii in 2015. One of the last games ever released for the console, development was completed in 2011, but there was a 4-year release delay due to complicated issues with other companies developing Wii U and 3DS ports. The gameplay differs substantially between the three versions, with Naka's original Wii version coming off best in reviews. Critics unanimously agreed that it was better than the Wii U and 3DS efforts, which were developed by Kadokawa Games. Unfortunately, the original Wii version received a very limited release in the end, initially coming bundled as a freebie with the inferior Wii U port of the game. Confused yet? Yes, too. All that aside, with its innovative, flight-based gameplay and bright, colourful style, Rodea the Sky Soldier channels Nights into Dreams in many ways. However, it doesn't quite live up to the Saturn Classics quality. Actually, that sounds familiar for some reason. Anyway, what's next? Number 1. Balan Wonderworld. Right, here it is. Sorry to end things on a bit of a sour note, but at the time of recording, this is Yuji Naka's most recent game. As much as we'd like to forget it ever happened, sometimes you just have to face up to reality. The disastrous Balan Wonderworld was released in 2021, with Naka working for Square Enix. Somehow, somewhere, something went dramatically wrong. At a glance, it has the flavours of Nights into Dreams about it. Young protagonists Leo and Emma are similar to Clarice and Elliot, and Balan himself looks like he might be a nightmarean. However, Balan Wonderworld shares none of the game's artistry, creativity, or quality. Awkward, bizarre, and unintentionally creepy, players take control of one of the two children as they delve into the hearts of troubled people and attempt to solve their problems by dressing up in weird costumes. Critics labelled the platforming gameplay as dated, and the hat-faced monstrosity failed to make an impact on sales charts worldwide. Naka actually resigned from Square Enix following the release of this game, and has since filed a lawsuit against the company, scathingly claiming that they don't care about game quality. Fighting words, certainly, and time will tell where his career goes from here. At the end of the day, though, he's the man behind one of gaming's greatest accomplishments, and nobody, not even Balan, can take that away from him.